Bobcat Breakdown's back for its first show of the semester to discuss all things Quinnipiac hockey as the men won the Connecticut Ice Tournament. Plus, the men's and women's basketball were back in action over the weekend. We discuss all this and more starting right now. Welcome to Studio 125. I'm your host, Rob Lying, and alongside me are two Quinnipiac basketball insiders, Ross Meglin and Eric Kerr. Guys, how are we feeling tonight?
Rob, I'm feeling great, but I got to ask you, and of course Ross, did you guys plan the USA outfit? Because you got a USA pin here, Rob's got a USA tie going on. What was going on there? Any thoughts on that?
There was no planning of that whatsoever.
No planning whatsoever, EK.
All right, Rob, I believe it, I believe it.
Awesome, let's get down to business. Desi Jones is having a career year in points per game and is also doing it on the defensive end, averaging over a steal per game. Ross, I'll ask you first. With all this in mind, should Jones be in the starting lineup moving forward?
Yeah, Rob, there's no doubt about this one. I mean, Desi, he belongs in the starting lineup. He is the point guard one for this team. It's of the players who played in at least 12 games so far this year, he ranks second in field goal percentage with 45.5%. There's no doubt in my mind that he's the number one on this team.
There's literally nobody left.
Exactly.
Sadie Lewis is hurt. Bernie Blunt is hurt. You got to go to Desi Jones to be that PG1. And he has done that, as you said. You know, I'm not going to list off the stats again, but if we were to go with some other external playmakers that could help out, that'd be huge for this team because Desi Jones is more of a scoring point guard. So I look at playmakers at the point guard spot, or facilitating spot rather. I see Kevin Marfo, team leader in assist. And I also see Brendan McGuire, team second in assists. We're not counting Savon Lewis because he's hurt. He had the higher stat there.
Right.
But moral of the story, it is yes, because there's no other options.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I do see that Kevin Marfo, he is someone who controls the ball at the point guard position all the time. They trust him. Baker trusts him to bring the ball up the floor. And his first thought when he gets the ball, even if it's down low, isn't to shoot, which is kind of bizarre sometimes. I know we talk about it a lot. We wish he would go to the basket more. But his first thought is to pass, and that's why he's racking up so many assists.
Yeah, and Baker says it all the time too. He appreciates the fact that his big men can facilitate in that high post, low post, or even in the free throw line spot or driving too. We see Kevin Marfo make those assists as well. So it's not abnormal to have a guy like Kevin Marfo being the leader in assists. And not only that, but we know how great of an impact he has been. Just got MAC Player of the Week with a double-double on the season thus far in points and rebounds. He has been huge. He did do so many things, but in terms of the PG1 role, yes, we got to stick with Desi Jones because he is their PG only one right now at that spot.
Eric, with the way the men's basketball team stands in the conference at number 5 in the MAC standings, do you see the Bobcats trending upwards or downwards as the second half comes to a close?
Rob, I see them at about the middle for me. I'm going to go 5-4 finish, mainly because they have a very tough road stretch coming up, and Quinnipiac isn't the strongest on the road, Ross. 3-5 on the year on the road, and they got a good amount of tough road games, as I mentioned. They got to go to Monmouth, which is a tough team with George Pappas on the roster. They got to go with Iona on the road. It's a tough matchup there. St. Peter's, obviously, that's tough with them at home already. They got to go on the road and play them. The one exception is Marist, because Marist is the worst team in the MAC, literally. 3-8 on the season, they have the worst record. And if Quinnipiac, if Marist could drop 87 points on Quinnipiac, but if the Bobcats can still score 94 and beat them, that just says something about that team. You know what I mean, Ross?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're actually pretty similar. I have them trending a little bit upwards. I have a lot more faith in this team. I have them at 6-3 on the rest of this season, with a lot of the same losses, like Monmouth away, Iona away, St. Peter's this coming weekend away, all teams that are ranked higher than them right now. As tight as the MAC is, even with Iona at 10-0, it's still a pretty tight conference. But I do have a lot of faith in this team because Baker says if they can win on the road, they'll have a lot more faith in this team come March time.
Yeah, where's your discrepancy? I know you had one more win. I'm just curious.
Well, I'd have to see both. Let's pull our iPads.
Let's
together.
see.
Let's compare in real time right now.
Looks like we have the Fairfield. Oh,
Fairfield,
yeah.
yes.
Fairfield, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I have them winning away. The Fairfield right now, 4-5 in the middle of the pack, just below Quinnipiac. I think that's a road win they could pick up very
Yeah,
easily.
they did beat them earlier in the season too,
Yeah.
so I guess that makes sense. That game's coming up after the home game against Monmouth
Yeah, exactly.
on February 9th. So that is a tough game. I don't know. I think the road record is just going to be tough, and I think the MAC, anyone can beat anyone, especially when you have that home court advantage. So in my mind, I think it's got to be 5-4 for sure.
Is it time for Rose Caverly to be benched? The senior guard has not dropped a lot of points on the board since the first game of the season. So let's flash back to our last show in December when Jack Main gave his take on what they should do with Rose Caverly.
The only player that we forgot that everyone's like, who are you missing? You're missing Rose Caverly. Well, Rose is streaky, and holy cow, is she in a funk. She should go work on her TikTok dances, and instead of working and keep working on that three-point shot as well, because she is a bottom 6% shooter in the country from two-point range and a bottom 25% shooter from field goal range in general. She is also committing a lot of stupid fouls as well. Time to get her a chance to go regroup and get some younger players some minutes.
So Ross, Eric, this one is for the both of you. Should Rose Caverly be benched?
Well, obviously, we know Jack Main's passions about that, and I'm not going to side with him because I'm going with the fact that you can't judge a couple of bad games and just instantly send them to the bench, because we know who Rose Caverly has been. MAC All-13 selection last year. She's a good part, crucial part to this team. She provides playmaking. She provides scoring. So that's a big thing for her. And, what does it do if you send a player that's normally a starter for this team right to the bench? It derails their confidence. That's the big thing. So you got to ignore that fact. But I think regardless of what the Bobcats should do, an important thing to keep in mind is what Rose should do to improve himself to potentially, not lose her starting job or, gain back more minutes, whatever they decide to do to adjust their lineup. Work on finishing more creative ways in the paint. We talked about, Rose Caverly has a negative percentage from the two-point line, at about negative 15%, shooting just 30% of two-point shots. That shot has to be higher, so finding ways to be more creative inside. A floater could help in that stat as well. That's key. Mimic your abilities for shooting from the free throw line as you would from the field. She's the best in the team in free throw percentage at 84% on the year. So find a way to get those shots that you get up at the free throw line in practice to the main stage game. Also, don't dribble during your right hand in warm-ups. I know this is crazy to me, but as a basketball player back in the day, I developed my left hand really well from just dribbling my left hand in warm-ups. And that's because it helps with tagging with both hands. Rose Caverly, we've seen it in the press defense, she does not have a strong left hand dribbling the basketball, which means if you're going against a tough man-to-man press defense, you're not going to be able to get through that. You're just going to turn the ball over, and that's where the brunt of her problems have been in terms of trying to beat a full court press, is being able to attack with both hands at the same time. So those are my key things that she needs to work on if she wants to continue to gain more prominent minutes in the starting lineup.
Well, you definitely prepared for that one, and you also unlocked a memory I forgot I had with dribbling with your left hand before the game. That's something that's actually pretty key. For me, I think that the expectations are just a little bit too high for Rose Caverly. I think the way that Lowe was looking at Jack during that flashback was spot on, because I think it's a little bit too much to just take her out of the lineup. She's having a down year, yes, but it's very similar to what she did a year ago. She's still top 3 in scoring on this team behind Mackenzie Deweese and Michaela Morris, which is where she finished a year ago. She's averaging 7.9 points per game, which is just down from 10.4 last year. Eric, I think you mentioned it. She's second on the team in assists behind Deweese with 57. The next best behind 57 is 28. So I think that she knows when she's on the court that when she's not having the hot day shooting, that she can pass the ball and not necessarily rack up the assists, but move the ball around and try to get the hot hand.
Yeah, and let's not get it twisted. The last couple games, 2 points and 4 points. Not pretty, but before that, from January 13th to January 22nd, she had 10, 11, 12, 13 points in a row. Pretty interesting how that counted up like that.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show she's not supposed to be this 20-point per game scorer. She's supposed to be someone that comes in and gets you 10 or 14 points a game. It may not always be the case, but she had that stretch where she was scoring over double digits consistently.
Absolutely.
My next question for you guys is that if Caverly were to be benched, who would be her replacement on the court? Jackie Grisdale, Haley Smith, or Jillian Casey?
I know we both said that we keep her in the starting lineup, but Ross, if you had to choose someone.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if we're going to hop on the Jackie Grisdale bandwagon after a huge game she had, 26 points in a 26-point comeback against Niagara last weekend, she's the obvious choice. She plays 12 minutes off the bench right now. I think she could be elevated in her time off the bench, maybe replace the time Rose has on the floor with Grisdale, minimize Rose and add Grisdale. But I'm liking the way that things are happening right now for this women's basketball.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think we should change much, especially considering you're bringing a first-year walk-on and straight into the starting lineup. It's a bit of a risky move. If I were to change it, I would go big ball. I'm going to have Grace LaBarge as my 4 spot, meaning DeWeese slides into the point guard role, and it goes Bonner, Free, LaBarge, and Morris from 2 to 5. The reason being, while the stats aren't as glamoring as compared to Jackie Grisdale as of late with a 5.5 to 2.4, I think LaBarge offers some bigger size to help with your floor spacing and your shooting. Grace LaBarge is 6'3", Jackie Grisdale is 5'9". There you go, right there. So she's able to just get out there and look at those highlights. Got as a pure catch and shoot shot from the corner. That is what she does best, and that's what she'll be able to provide in that starting unit. Not really being able to look too much in terms of facilitating and scoring on her own. She can score without the ball, and DeWeese, as we know, and Morris, as we know, are good facilitators, good playmakers that can set her up. She reminds me of Paula Straume. You weren't here for the Paula Straume days, but she was also a former stretch for this Quinnipiac women's basketball team. So if you put Grace LaBarge in this role now at a young age, then it could really help her develop and grow, because she had 10 points last time out against Niagara, and that was because she played 16 minutes. She only averages about 6.9 minutes per game on the season alone. So put that in perspective. Give her more time. She can go out there and contribute.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because I think it all has to do with who has the hot hand. You have to go with that person. If Grisdale's putting up 26 points a game, then yes, she deserves to start and have the minutes on the floor. If Rose is putting up 12, 13, 11, 12, 13, like you mentioned, then she deserves to be out there. So I think it's really just going with whoever has the hot hand. Right now it's Grisdale, but I don't like taking Rose out of the lineup.
100%.
Those are some great points. Now it's time to go to our first break, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll talk all things ice hockey.
When we adopt a shelter pet, we discover they're a unique mix of all kinds of things.
Come on, Jules, spot on this last one. There it is. Keep going with it. Leo.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love.
I know what you're thinking. I need a job. I need a new career.
Well, I've been there.
I've been there.
I've been there. I wasn't happy with what I was doing.
After high school, I didn't have a plan.
I just wanted to start working. I got laid off twice, but you gotta keep
You
going.
just need the right skills. Find an apprenticeship.
I found a 2-year IT program.
I found a medical course online.
I'm now a consultant in the tech space.
You have more options than you think. You can do this.
You will find something.
You will find something new.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made home ownership happen. Homeschooling yourself on loans, beefing up your credit score.
So I'm pre-approved.
You were like, yes! Sorry. Color coding listings, ticking boxes, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. Home sweet home. You aced house hunting. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back. Now it's time to switch to the other side of the People's United Center. With the hockey season coming down to a close soon, the women's team are one of the top performers in the ECAC, but as the winter dies down, the Bobcats are looking to bounce back a tough month in January with a 3-4 to end the month. With the season coming to a close, what does Quinnipiac need to do to turn things around into the final months? Ross, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, well, thanks, Rob. I think what's been happening with them is they've been playing a lot better competition, such as Clarkson, Wisconsin, and their defense is just relying too much on their goalies, like Logan Angers and Corrine Schroeder. They both have great save percentages, both 94% plus, but you can't rely on your last line of defense, really, if you're going to want to win games late, especially when you're playing teams like Clarkson, Wisconsin, who put up 39 and 42 shots on goal. Your last line of defense is not going to come through all the time.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Definitely, so it's harder competition is definitely exposing the Bobcats on defense. I'm just going to throw in a quick stat before we get out
Let's hear it.
Into the rest of the stuff here for hockey. Those shots they've allowed each game, Wisconsin 28, Clarkson 39, Harvard 24, and Colgate 34. Those shots in total have a higher than league average, around 24 per game. So that just goes to show that when this Quinnipiac women's hockey team is squared off against tougher competition, their defense is folding a little bit. They got to find ways to be able to step in front, make those big blocks, defensive saves to prevent those shots opportunities and help your goalie, Corinne Schroeder, who's done a very good job still. It's had 2 shutouts in that stretch against Union and Cornell. So that's going to be the key, Ross, to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again against a tough team.
Yeah, and I think their opponents have been matching their offense, which has been limiting the Bobcats on offense with shots on goal, which is typically their strong suit. So if they're not able to put shots on goal, they're not able to score.
100%.
It's not easy.
The next question is for Ross. Which top players from the Bobcats will reach the 30-point goal by the end of the season? Sadie Pearce, Lexia Gia, or Olivia Mobley?
Ross start twice in a row. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, you can start if you want.
I'll actually take this
Go for
one. So you actually mentioned some interesting point on maths. So I'll get to that point. So I'm going to go with Olivia Mobley here because she takes the most shots on this women's hockey team. And more shots leads to more goal opportunities. And I'll get to that in a second. She leads the team in shots at 116. Nobody else in this roster has over 100. And looking at the rest of the points count, obviously Mobley is still second in comparison to Peer and Agia with 23 and 19. Mobley has 20. But if you look at it this way, quick maths, more goals equals more points. Goals equals 2 points. Assists equals 1 point. So if you have someone that's getting more shots at the net, that could lead to more goal opportunities. So thus, if Olivia Mobley keeps putting in those shots towards the goal, they're eventually going to find their way into the back of the net, right? So by NAF rules, Olivia Mobley has to take this one by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, that actually does make a lot of sense to me. I'm going to go with Sadie Pearce. She already has 23 points on the year. She has 2 assists over the last 2 games. So really, I'm just going back to the basketball point. I'm going with who has the hot hand right now. Sadie Pearce, you said, is relying more on assists. She has 8 goals on the year, 15 assists. If she can continue getting these assists, I think having 23 points already, she'll reach 30 rather quickly.
Yeah, definitely could be a case, but you can't ignore the maths here, Ross.
I know, you got the math
Assist
equation.
is 1 point, goals is 2.
No, I get
More
it.
goals equals more points. So you got to go with someone who is the second on the team in goal scoring this year at 11, and could very well get more because, let's face it, she has the puck in her stick a lot, so put her in those situations, she can go out there and get it done.
After the Bobcats' huge victory over the Yukon Huskies in the CT Ice tournament, does this win prove that the Quinnipiac can win big games just like they did to teams like St. Lawrence last year, Sacred Heart 2 years ago, and Brown 3 years ago? This one will be for Eric to answer.
Thanks, Rob. This CT Ice men's hockey tournament does not prove that Quinnipiac is ready for the primetime lights of an ECAC hockey tournament because they beat teams by only 2 goals or less against teams that aren't even within the UCHO polls. Sacred Heart, they barely beat. They won overtime to them, and they had no votes at all in the polls and have a negative record at 10, 12, and 3. UConn had just 1 vote to get to the UCHO poll by the end of the weekend and are 12 and 11. So if you look at the bigger picture here, this is not a good straining path for tougher ECAC hockey opponents they could very well see in the championship, like a number 9 Cornell or number 18 Harvard. And the same goes for the deeper run of the Frozen Four. Could see a Minnesota State. I could list the whole UCHO poll, but I'm not going to do that because that's boring. So, with that being the case, you can't judge this as a good quality championship win.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this was the tournament for them to lose. If they had not won this tournament, we'd be having a much different conversation. They probably would have dropped in the polls. Like you said, the teams they were playing against were not even remotely close to them in the polls. And this just reaffirms the fact that Quinnipiac is the best team in Connecticut. And going against those losses they had in the past, this team is way better than they were, say, 5 years ago and any team they've had in between. They have Yanni Perez setting records with shutouts, and Zach Metza, 26 points in 26 games, and he's a top defender in the country. This is the best Quinnipiac team they've seen in a long time. So this was an easy win. Even though they didn't beat teams by a whole lot, this was an easy win, and they should win this tournament very easily.
No fault to Yaniv Peretz, and you mentioned the best team in Connecticut, but that only gets you so far when you got to play against those schools out in the West.
Right.
So leave it at that.
The last question is for Ross. In your opinion, who on the men's hockey team that needs to step up as they hit the home stretch against teams like Union, RPI, and Brown?
I don't know if step up is the right term rather than just stay hot. This team is already hot. They're ranked number 2. They were ranked number 1 a few weeks ago. I think guys like Zach Metz, the top defender in the country, I just said it a second ago, 26 points in 26 games. He's got to keep doing his thing, and they'll be just fine. Yanni Perez, 9 shutouts. That's some sort of record. I forget exactly what it is, but it's good, obviously.
Yeah.
He's not allowed a lot of goals, and they obviously don't allow a lot of shots on goal. So the defense for this team is really phenomenal. On the offensive side, Bongiovanni, 12 goals, leading the team, and Ty Smolanek, 11 goals. These guys just have to keep doing their thing. No one's got to step up. They just got to stay hot.
Yeah, Yaniv Peretz also just won the his third MAC Goaltender of the Month of the Year award, which is crazy to even talk and speak about. But I'm just going to throw out one name there right now, Michael Lombardi. He has not registered a single point in 4 out of his last 8 games. He only scored a goal against Princeton in that stretch, in 2 of those games. And Princeton is not a great ECAC hockey team, just 5-11-2 in the year, even worse than Sacred Heart, to put that in perspective. I love my guys from Rhodey. Barrington, Rhode Island guy, Michael Lombardi, got to love that. But we need to see you get back to your first start of the year production when he had at least 1 point in 5 of his first 6 games to start the season. So Michael Lombardi has to get a little bit back on track. But other than that, like you said, Ross, this men's ice hockey team is legit this year. Best I've seen in a while.
It's time for our last break of the night. When we come back, we have QBSN Call of the Week and Final Roars.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's put a ride home.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here.
Wait. What?
I can't drive.
What?
My.
Oh.
Welcome back. This week we are changing things up a bit. Instead of Game of the Week, let's hear the QBSN Call of the Week.
Oliver Chow has the puck, top of the right circle again. Chow has it for Quinnipiac. Chow trying to lose it. He throws it in front. He scores! Oh my, Zach Metza! 3-2 Bobcats after a back-and-forth game. The Bobcats will face UConn tomorrow afternoon. Zach Metza tucks it home.
It is all over in overtime. Zach Metza with his second OT winner of the year. The Bobcats win 3-2 in what was an insane game against the Pioneers, and the champion falls for the 3 count.
For the first time in 3 years, there will be a guaranteed new champion as the Quinnipiac Bobcats beat the Sacred Heart University Pioneers 3-2 in sudden death overtime on the stick of Zach Metza.
It's time for the final roars. Ross, go ahead.
Thanks, Rob. With all 4 winter sports teams entering the final stretch of their regular seasons, I believe for the first time in a long time, all 4 teams have legitimate chances to win their conference championships. Men's hockey is obvious, but they're on the top of the ECAC standings and the easy favorite to win the ECAC and make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. Women's hockey is in 4th in the ECAC right now, but the ECAC is super tight. The women have slipped a bit in the polls, but they're still very competitive in the conference. Now over to basketball. Women's basketball was the preseason favorite to win the MAC. They haven't played up to expectations, but are still 2nd in the MAC right now behind Fairfield. March is unpredictable, but the women's team competes with everyone they play. Finally, the men's basketball team. It might be a stretch, I get that, but they have exceeded expectations this year and have arguably the player of the year on the men's side in Kevin Marfo back for his final year. If Iona is upset in March, Quinnipiac is my favorite to win it all.
The MAC basketball tournament begins on March 8th, meaning in just 1 month, the MAC player of the year for both the men and the women will be revealed. Now, focusing on the women's side, you could argue about Fairfield's Lou Lopez-Senecal as the clear front-runner as the MAC's leading scorer, or Niagara's Angel Parker, who's having a standout first year leading the MAC in steals per game, is right inside the conference's top 5. But that person you just see on your screen, that's one player that can score and defend really well, and that is Mackenzie Deweese. Deweese is in the top 10 for the following stat categories: points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, and steals per game. Checking Quinnipiac box score each night usually features a Deweese double-double with about 6 to 8 steals a night regularly, showing how huge her impact is. And it's not too uncommon for MAC Women's Basketball Player of the Years to repeat. Right before Deweese won the honors, rider Stella Johnson was the MAC Player of the Year in 2019 and 2020. From a prior MVP season, Deweese still improved this year with higher averages in points per game, steals per game, rebounds per game, and three-point percentage. The only thing stopping Deweese at this point from a repeat is the voters. And I would be shocked if Mackenzie Deweese was not the 2021 MAC Player of the Year.
The women's ice hockey team has come a long way since I came to Quinnipiac in the fall of 2018. The team finished that season with a 12-18 record, finishing 6th in the ECAC standings. Fast forward to my senior year, and the team is one of the top 10 teams in the nation, with a record of 18-5. And in my personal opinion, this is probably one of the best assembled and most talented teams that head coach Cass Turner has put together with her coaching staff. And I cannot wait to see what this team does moving forward for the rest of the season, and I am confident that they will make a great run in the playoffs. That's all we have for tonight, Bobcat Nation. To stay up to date on all things Quinnipiac sports, be sure to check out our website, q30tv.com. Also follow us on social media at Q30 Sports. From the producers, everyone behind the scenes, our analysts, Ross and Eric, I'm your host, Rob Lyon. We thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on next week's edition of Bobcat Breakdown.